said talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
You stupid bitch, you filthy... Flyover State of Fear. Welcome back to Flyover State of Fear. I got another great guest for us this week in Niel Skalican of UnPresidented Podcast. How's it going, Neil?
It's going good. Thank you so much for having me on. I feel like a lower tier kind of guest here, but I'm gonna try to do my best to.
We're the lowest tier here. No, thank you so much. For those that don't know, Neil is, I would say, adjacent of our Flyover family, being Yusuf from Flyover State of Films, podcast co-host on UnPresidented, where you guys like dive deep into presidents, and it's really interesting. You write a really great script, and also for new listeners and old listeners, Yusuf is our editor, who's mentioned from time to time.
It's definitely like I feel like sort of unoriginal sometimes with it, but we try to present an original, modern feel.
You're talking to someone that talks about horror movies on the internet, and there's like, I think, thousands of these shows, so don't worry about originality, No, you guys got a great show, and informative, and it's funny sometimes, and that's what I want when I get my history.
Yeah, when I'm not stopping Yusuf from, I don't know. I feel like Yusuf is definitely the comic relief in the podcast, and
he thinks
the nerd. Yeah,
no, he thinks. No. I remember I shared like a post of one of I forget which president it was. I was like just promoting the show on Instagram, and I didn't realize it was like a very aggressive political post about one of the presidents, and I had like several comments from like family that didn't listen but saw my post, and I was like, oh, I was just sharing my friend's show. I didn't even read it. I forget what the thing was about the statues.
Yeah, that was a quite controversial one to share at that point.
Yeah, it was just Instagram story where you're just like more family friends than Twitter is. So it didn't have any flack, but I was like, I should read next time. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on this show, Fear. Now, as listeners know, what is your horror origin story? Kind of, tell me, and you can answer that question any way you'd like, about whether you don't like horror movies or what got you into them, or I guess what your relationship is with them.
So it used to be like my favorite genre. I think especially when you hit like a sweet spot, at least like from my perspective, like friends growing up, like from like age like 11 to like 18, it's just like the most fun thing to do is just go to the movies and like watch a horror film with friends and things like that. And so I like tried to kind of get a head start. I feel like when I was really young, because I was like the youngest kid in my family, like as a youngest sibling. And so, there's like a considerable age difference in between me and my siblings. So my parents were kind of checked out in the sense of like monitoring me and like what I was like kind of watching on TV all the time. And so I was able to get away with like watching some like, scarier movies when I was like 8 or 9. Like I remember watching like the Ring and even like, just like The Exorcist, like the classic one. But, I think like the episodes or like the movie that really like took me aback and like really freaked me out to the point where like it was like the first time I ever like really like cried over a movie, like terrified. It's like The Exorcism of Emily Rose for some reason. I think.
Oh yeah, I remember the trail, like the commercials being terrifying. Exorcism Emily Rose.
Yeah.
That's one up there. And you mentioned The Ring also, and just from doing a bit of these episodes, that's a common one a lot of people have mentioned.
Yeah.
that hooked them in, and they went to see. Oh, I definitely understand that of youngest in the family, and like so you're
Hmm.
kind of like not being checked as often, so
Right.
you see them a
Right.
little earlier. But Exorcist Memory Rose is a good one. I've someone at one point picked it for the show, and they like took it back, and I've been very curious to revisit it. I
Yeah.
remember I checked that one out. I think I was in middle school, I want to say, and I watched it. I believe I watched it like homesick one day, where I did like most of my best like watching of movies, and probably scared the hell out of me. And
Nice.
then like
Yeah.
years later, to find out that movie starred like Deb. It was just Deb from Dexter.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I think that like what gets, I mean, especially like when you're young, what gets you the most about some of these movies is that like, if any kind of like sell of like there's like a realistic element to it, and like when you're young and like, I mean, I wasn't like religious when I was young, but when there's
So
like a religious element, you're like, well, I don't know if this like could actually happen. You know, you kind of get terrified of being up at 3 a.m. for example,
I
things like
think they're
that.
the scariest ones.
Yeah,
I still to this day like religious horror done right. I'm not religious, but it gets me. There's something creepy about it, and like especially exorcisms, and like it's funny the movie we're talking about today. I mean, you clicked on the thumbnail, or it's Paranormal Activity. Um, I forgot about like the exorcism aspect of that movie, and we'll get into that when we get to the
yeah,
movie.
same, same.
But yeah, I like that you mentioned though, like going to the movie, like seeing the horror movies with your friends in the theaters is a fun part because
Hmm.
I would say from middle school to high school was always like, oh, there's new something scary out. Like Paranormal was one of those, and those are always like, which I always like hate it, not from a horror reason, but because I'm a drill sergeant in the movie theater, but like because you were going to what probably a 7 o'clock, maybe 9 o'clock showing of something, and there
Yeah,
was like the rowdy, like everyone in there is 16 to
right.
like
Like they'll
maybe
like
19.
scream at certain moments, like it'll get
Yeah,
real. Yeah.
talk like I remember. Oh God, I remember the one we had to go see. One of the saws and like the ushers, and we're like
Mhm.
14, 15 or whatever. The ushers would stand in the aisles because the groups that were at those movies of those time frames were so fucking rowdy, and it always bothered me. To this day, it does. Uh, but I'm like thinking, man, that must have sucked to just be like someone
Mhm.
our age or just like not wanting to deal with kids going to see like Saw 3 or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. You know, I think that the movies like, I mean, because it's almost like the same experience as like going to like a haunted house too. You know, that was like such a fun thing, especially for me when I was like 12, 13, even
Yeah.
like in high school, like that was just like the thing. And so, yeah, you know, like there's like that. I don't know. There's just
I
always like this nostalgia for it. I feel like
I
in
will
terms of like, yeah,
I will still not forgive this one kid. Speaking of a haunted house and like
yeah,
wanting to go and go to the theaters, um, we were seeing the Ring 2. I don't know if you remember the Ring 2. It was about Emily Rose time. It was like kind of hyped. That wasn't a good movie, but it was like hyped up,
yeah. I
right?
remember it somewhat. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's. So I remember opening weekend. This one guy I had never grew up with, but never hung out. He's like, "Oh, do you want to come to the movies? My dad will take us." I'm like, "You're goddamn right. I want to see that." I waited in front of my house, and his dad was late to pick me up. We go to the movie, and the thing was sold out because, of course, it was. It was probably Friday night, 7 o'clock, like in the
Right.
popular town. And I remember we defaulted and went to go see the Pacifier with Vin Diesel.
Okay.
The
It's
only other thing,
a jump. Yeah.
yeah. And like, that was all right, whatever. I've still never seen The Ring to this day, and I always think like, I know it's probably not a good movie, but that fucking kid made me miss it because I would have been on
You
time.
have to get closure from that experience. You got to go see The Ring too. Goodness.
Uh,
Just
um,
yeah.
but anyway, no, that's awesome, and I feel like, is there anything recent or anything else that has more hooked you in the recent years? I know.
No,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, I'm trying to. The thing is that like unfortunately, I don't watch like a whole just a ton of movies more recently, or like really, it's like streaming shows are
Sure.
very much the thing. So I mean, I did watch like American Horror Story a bit
Okay.
when it was more popular.
Yeah.
Um, and I
Fuck.
like there are some other shows that have like more creepy vibes to them, but I wouldn't like classify them as like a horror
Oh,
type of. Yeah.
here on the show, I use the word horror very loose in the sense
Okay.
like, is it in the genre? Do you get Halloween time feels of it? Is it spooky? So no,
Yeah.
no worries. Yeah, they're scary shows. I only ever caught the first season of American Horror Story. It never really,
Yeah.
fully piqued me. But anyway, so Neil, you picked Paranormal Activity. Before we really dive into it, what was the reasoning? I know this was, before I say anything about it, it is in a way a landmark movie for like
Right.
of our generation at a time. So why'd you pick it?
I mean, really for that reason. Like, I think that I mean, it's interesting to me because it's like one of the cheapest budgeted movies I feel like of all time
Yeah,
for the success that it had.
it's the second it's the second most profitable film of all time. So it had a
Yeah.
budget of
Wow.
$15,000, filmed in 10 days. I mean, its post production budget was 215,000, which is
Yeah.
still really low. And then it grossed 193.4 million, and
Yeah.
spawned or for a while a really successful franchise.
Yeah.
And
I
it,
feel like yeah. I mean, like that's like something that's really hard to do in like an era where like Transformers is like the biggest movie. This is around like 2008 or nine or
yeah,
something like
it's
that.
the movie's in 2007, but we don't see it till 2009. And
Okay.
yeah, no, I totally get it. I love that you picked it because I, for being like, when I first saw it, I was scared of the movie. I remember I had a scary experience. I bought in the crowd, the scaring. We did the whole like demand it in your town. And the first time I've seen it, um, really seen it since that experience. I maybe watched it like once in college.
Mm.
And, you know, we're going to talk about it. It's fine.
Oh, what?
Uh,
It's fine. Dang. All right, we're gonna
um,
have. I mean, look, like,
no, yeah, you lay it on, um, but anyway, it did start reinvigorate a whole genre. You
right,
have Blair Witch, but I mean, that's a 10-year gap, really.
right, right, and I mean, there's also just like, yeah, I think it was just so like talked about too. There was like a mystery to it, like the promo or like the advertising was interesting, and that didn't
Demanded
get
in your
released.
theaters.
Right, like the way that like you didn't, they didn't really need to market it that it wasn't like an expensive type of marketing tactic. I think that all they had to do was like show scenes of like people being scared in a movie
Hmm.
theater, and that was kind of like enough in some sense.
Yeah.
There was like a mystery behind like what is this kind of film?
No, that was
Um,
absolutely that was the marketing. It was
yeah,
maybe the photo of the cracked photo in there, but it was that, and the demand in the movies and the screams, and then like uh the imposters it's used that to this day still.
yeah,
No, it was all about the marketing. I mean, and it used the same marketing tactics that Blair Witch did.
hmm
It
hmm
used the internet to its advantage. It used a no-name cast. Um, I mean, thankfully, this didn't have the same effect as like the Blair Witch, where like people legit thought those kids had died, and
yeah,
their lives were kind of shit for a while after it because of it. But no, the movie is a landmark, and I really like the third one.
but is that's not like the Ghost Dimension one? Is this just called Paranormal Activity 3, right?
Yeah, it's the one
Yeah,
with the Katie and her sister in the 80s.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I
I
think
remember that
that is
one.
like
That one
the
is pretty good.
it's
Yeah,
creepy. The second one, it's just like a little redundant.
right.
And the real, I think there are only three sequels. I think the only three ones I've seen. I never saw the Ghost Dimension. I think there was
Yeah.
one that came out like
What-
Paramount last year, next to Kin.
It is kind of nice how they set it up. I mean, they really set it up nicely for themselves in Paranormal Activity with having all of these sequels or prequels to it, because they already allude to, oh, this happened to me when I was a kid, like the Katie, the main character, and whatnot. I wonder if they did that purposely, because they couldn't have anticipated they were going to be this successful, right? Like,
I think they were just giving it backstory. I mean, this movie was filmed in. I have some fun facts here. Like, this movie was filmed in 10 days. The studio wanted to reshoot the whole movie with like named actors. It was written and directed by Oren Peli, and it was filmed in his house. Like, he redid his house to fit the movie, and he never made a movie before or even worked on a set. So I'm just going to go on a limb and say it definitely wasn't set up to have any sort of.
It sounds like a passion project. It's
like
a hobby.
Like I think the story goes, and it's not in my research, I just remember it from the time, that he had seen like something fall off his nightstand, and then got the idea like, I could just make this movie. And I mean, it is, if a lot of us put our heads together and probably focus, we probably can make this type of movie too. And that's why it had so many like imposters. This one was also just perfectly like, it's perfectly paced. It's the perfect time for one of these movies. You don't spend too much time. It moves. The characters are likable. The actors aren't, like, except for one guy in it, the actors are all doing their job really well.
Okay, I'm interested to hear about the.
Yeah, I want to review. I think I always think it's the demonologist guy.
Okay.
When he comes in at the end, like towards the end, and he's like, can't be here. Gotta go. Even in the theaters, it fucking made me laugh. And I was scared. I was locked in the quiets, but I remember being like, oh, this guy shows up like it's almost like a parody at that moment. Yeah, dude. And then this franchise really, I think, needs to thank its success from I don't know if you were aware of it, from Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. I mean, I heard that his name was like dropped in like some of the like they had already like made the movie, I thought, and then he kind of suggested some edits to it, and then that was
So the story goes, and I think it's now like urban legend, is that he watched the movie. He had a copy of the DVD, watched the movie, and his door locked, and like put the DVD in a. So he was like, "This movie's haunted." Put the DVD in a bag to bring it back to the studio or something like that, to throw it out, like, because he was like freaked.
Oh,
who knows?
I feel like he's a difficult person to freak out too.
Yeah. So the quote I have is, "It's not something the marketing department just came up with before releasing the movie. Spielberg famously carried the DVD to work in a trash bag because he thought it was haunted." So, and he's the guy who suggested the ending we all probably saw in theater, where spoiler, because this whole thing's spoiler, where Katie goes to the camera, and goes the demon face. He suggested that ending. This movie has 3 endings. I don't know if you want to save those to the end.
I'm really only familiar with like the main one ending. Like, I wasn't enthusiast enough to like get into both of them especially when I was that young. But I couldn't even find really the other. I mean, I guess I could have just put on YouTube, right? But
they were
when I was just watching,
I did a little research today. So they're all up now.
Yeah.
The DVD I have only has 2 of them on it. But at the time, because an article came up from like 2009, and it was like, and it was like, oh, the ending with the throat slit. And I'll explain these at the end of the episode.
Yeah,
it was removed by Paramount, so they definitely like got uploaded and then like internet policed in 2009. But they're all available today. I watched a YouTube video where they had 3 at once going. So, but just to start off the whole movie, before I begin and we get really into the details of the episode, I like to read the synopsis pulled from Google. and it is sometimes accurate and sometimes not accurate at all. And I haven't read it yet, so let's see if it's accurate.
Okay.
Soon after moving into a suburban tract home, Katie and Micah become increasingly disturbed by, is it Mika? Yeah, Mika, become disturbed by what appears to be a supernatural presence. Hoping to capture evidence of it on film, they set up video cameras in the house, but are not prepared for the terrifying events that follow. Good description of this movie.
Yeah, everything but like the part where it's like soon after they move in, like that's not entirely clear until like Mika kind of gets pissy about like
she's
not
definitely
knowing that this was happening to her prior. Yeah,
she's definitely I noticed that in this watch. She's definitely like, it's a really nice house for like,
that's what I mean. San
like,
Diego, like, I mean, be living in San Francisco, I was just like, I know this is like 2006, but I was like, goodness, what do y'all do? Like,
oh, it's that of the style, like everything's Tuscan, you know, like I've been watching a lot of Cribs recently.
Classic.
You know, yeah. And my wife points out, like, she's like, the Tuscan style is just so like 2006, 2005.
Yeah.
And that's this house. And like, I know the director,
They have like a pool.
They have a pool. I mean, he's
nice.
doing well. So my imagination thinks she recently moved in with him, because he's even like, oh, you know, she's just girlfriend. He's like engaged. There's that line, like, engaged to be engaged.
He says girlfriend repeatedly. Like,
he's not committed. He's testing the waters if this is, because he gaslights the hell out of her the whole movie.
Yes. I mean, he becomes more infuriating. I think that like in the beginning of the movie, I was very surprised. And I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead, but like,
we jump all around.
Yeah, like they have like a kind of a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Like he's like hearing Katie out, like, yeah, you know, this could be something. I know this is like bothering you, so like let's set up these cameras and like see if it's just like someone messing with us or whatever. And then he just gets so insufferable as like things progress. I don't know. Yeah.
I think they lean more into him trying to make him like mean, but like comic relief at the same time, and it sometimes works and sometimes
it's just
doesn't. He also really looks like Neve from Catfish.
Well, I'm not familiar.
The other MTV show, Catfish.
Oh, I've heard of Catfish, but I just
he looks just like him. And then Katie looks like Pam from The Office.
Okay. Yeah. It's like a little like typical kind of
Although we talked about going to see this in theaters. This memory came shooting back to me, and I cannot. You're familiar with the Chappelle Show, right?
Well, yeah.
So, do you remember the Real World House? And the guy goes, So in my theater, someone said that out loud, and Katie, and he was like, Katie has nice titties, and like I immediately like laughed today because I thought about that moment. Like it came back to me, and I was like, yeah, that's now my association with this movie.
Yeah. And that was like so like, I mean, like probably like prominent, like Chappelle Show then is like in its heyday. So it probably just hit really
so when we go around, we're touring, you know, we get to the house, they're kind of goofing around. It's just a lot of like very like early like banter. We get the explanation like, well, there's stuff going on, like you said. You know, things are set up. I mean, he sets up the camera. We get the explanation, which really helpful this time, so we understand that it's not just the police. What is set up is like the police found this footage and like here it is edited together. But give the introductions. We meet the characters, and you know, they are just they get like the same like commentary where it's a little like sexual at some points because they're just a couple with a camera and they're just trying to be funny. And like 2000, for anyone listening, 2006, no one's worried about like anything uploaded to the internet.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, it's kind of like, I appreciate that part. And then like, I think the movie is like set up nice where like you have like, I mean, it's sort of like, it feels like a dead space almost, or like they're able to just kind of, fill in like these little gaps, to kind of like give like this relief to the audience as well, right? Like you're just trying to like sort of
Yeah,
get to know them or their personalities, not necessarily any specific like big event about them or like,
no, it takes a
yeah,
slow roll to it. We meet, I think we do meet like one of their girlfriends.
right.
Just like there's only a few characters in this movie. And then we get to the motherfucker does love to say, Mika loves to say firewire. He's so obsessed. He's like, I got my firewire. But he has it set up and he's like, well, we're gonna, put it in front of the bed, watch the bed, and then night one, I mean, nothing happens, right? Nothing happens in night one.
Like a door moves, right? Or
Is
is
it
that
the door?
night one?
It's the sound. I'm sorry. That was what
Yeah, I think
I
there is like one. Yeah, there is
it's
like a sound.
the vibration and the sound of like, which almost just sounds like the house, right? Like talking to you.
Yeah,
And that the angle in that shot, so I don't know if you are, every time I'm watching, it's kind of like your room right now with the light behind you, like
yeah. If
it,
something was happening like right there,
yeah,
or
it's
yeah,
dark and the way it's lit and the things that are on it, the your eye is drawn to it because my eye plays tricks with it. I feel like
hmm,
you want something to walk towards it and it never does.
right. It is. I think it's like a very novel setup in that sense because like I like that they have like the time at the bottom or the bottom like right corner too, and so you can just
Oh,
like
it
see it.
moves and you're like,
Yeah,
this is what I'm looking
especially
behind
when
me
it's like
now.
fast forwarding or whatever, like especially like when she like gets up and stuff and like you see that she's just like standing like for like 2 hours or that's
Oh,
like a really,
yeah,
yeah,
that is more the creepier.
especially, yeah, I'm thinking like 2006 that would have been much more like, again, like just a novel idea of like
It
how you can, yeah,
scare the hell out. How simplistic can you do that
yeah,
movie? And but right after night one, we do get um the demon. I think the demonologist comes immediately, and he lays all this shit out, and she gives her backstory that, well, yeah, when I was a kid, me and my sister, we saw this dark figure,
mhm,
and we were scared, and it's kind of been going on and off since I've been 13. We were 8, then came back at 13, and then there was a fire, and then it really hasn't come about since. Um, and it is silly, like, because it's really just structured, right, and we gotta uh be mindful of the way that movie's set up, and it's like he's like, oh yeah, not what I deal with. um
yeah,
but I
because
could
he's not the actual demonologist. They never
no
actually get to a real, yeah,
no so but that's our first kind of introduction, and we immediately know, and then the nights kind of move, right.
yeah.
um
I
I'm
mean,
still
before we go, I actually just want to ask: do you like the fact that it like the nights like you're kind of like primed to like just be full of anticipation for those? Like,
yeah
is that like a tactic that is appreciated by someone who by you especially, or
yeah I like I gotta say, like, my rewatch today is like not what it was when I saw it. I liked the anticipation of it because it's you don't know what night the thing's gonna happen. And
right?
even the one thing I didn't notice on this watch when I'm jumping around is they did trickle back and forth, right? So that end, it's really like the last like 5 nights or so is when things get crazy, like
Really like
things
pick up.
escalate. And so, you know, I thought my memory thought like the the sheet like flipping over and back was early. It's actually like one of the last thing to happen.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Agreed.
um,
They're like less. I thought that it was like a, the intensity picks up pretty like in a straight line, or like in terms of like yeah, like the
yeah,
intensity of it. But it doesn't really. Yeah, there's like some times where like there's a more intense night, and then the next night is like, I
yeah,
mean,
and I like that because you're wondering. That's where the clock helps at the bottom. And one thing that the expert tells them is like, because the boyfriend's like, it is weird that he's like written, or I think they probably definitely improv a lot of it, so dismissive of all this stuff, even though it's
Right.
happening and his girlfriend's disturbed, and he set up cameras and like EVP meters, but he's so like dismissive. And the one important thing he tells him is like, don't communicate with it, don't play with it, we don't know what this is,
Don't get a Ouija board.
don't get the Ouija board. And
Yeah.
so that happens, and then but we do, the time passes, right? And every night though, the only thing you really do hear is the that vibration. Um and then like the door moves a little bit, and like Miko's reviews like the night, he'll go and scrub through and see what happens, and he's like, oh my god, that's so cool, like you see the door, like that happens a little after that, right?
Right. And so, but like the way that it progresses with Mika is also confusing, because I think that it's kind of fairly early to accept the demon hypothesis after like the I don't know, the therapist comes in, the guy, I don't know if he's like what officially he's called, but then he's like really quick to like mock therapists afterward, and then not
Yeah,
really. Yeah.
the therapist, like he is I don't know what, yeah, he's like I think he's supposed to be like one of those like a
Like a
medium.
ghost person or
Yeah,
whatever.
like
I
crossing
mean,
over with like Jordan or whatever. Like
yeah, but it's
he'll
supposed to be
talk
like
to
a
your,
human element, not like a
yeah,
demon element. Like that
yeah,
he's, yeah.
he'll talk to your aunt or something who passed. I
Right.
think that's who it is and was around. But so yeah, after that though, we do get a little bit of just more by the way, I call those people doom mouths on this show. I just make that term up, like the who kind of give you beware.
Oh, I see.
You
I
know,
see.
the old man in like a Friday the 13th to be like, don't go up there. There's a proper name for them, but I call them a doom mouth.
Dude.
Um,
Okay.
it's not a good term. But the first thing that happens is not even the door moving. It's I'm sorry, the first is the door moving, and that's it. And you're still watching the shadows, and they let it linger, but nothing happens.
Hmm.
Um, and then the next night, you know, once the next time something happens is she wakes up in a panic, like,
Yeah.
which
Which
I
is kind
have,
of like a jump scare in the movies. I feel
yeah,
like when it's like it's kind of just like a loud, like, bursts a bit.
which I have before. I've woken up like that before.
Yeah.
Like, you know, she's startled and she wakes them up, and it's like, it's all right, you know, and they go back to bed. Creepy, but nothing happens.
Hmm.
You know, just jump scare, but like nothing more anticipation. This movie's all edging.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Uh,
think that, yeah, that's like again like part of what I appreciate is that like that when you get to the night, you're like, okay, you're like the expectation is like this is going to be worse than the last night, which is kind of what you want in a scary movie to like kind of feed into like the
yeah.
ending being like the best part in the scary sense anyway.
No, definitely. And then one night she does shortly after that she gets up, and then it's the first time we see her like just standing there, and then back to bed, or it's
Right.
standing there, and yeah, back to bed, and she goes outside, and he's like, come back inside, babe, like you're cold. Like once again, I blame this more on the boyfriend being like, okay, I'll hang outside with you, like
Right. And
uh
then
like my wife's gone to sleep because I'm snoring and go to sleep on the couch sometimes, and I'm like, no, I'll go sleep on the couch, like I have a better night's sleep, you get back in bed, you know, and she's just trying
same
to be
thing.
nice,
Yeah.
she's just trying to be nice, like their relationship's so weird.
Yeah.
But that's like the
Yeah.
first like thing we get, right? Like the 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 monster or the demon is within Katie and getting
Yeah.
to,
Like infiltrating her at
yeah,
points. Yeah.
that's a
Yeah, because
creepy
it
scene.
seemed like in that, like when she was on the swing outside, that definitely was one of those like early moments, or like the earliest moment where you see it.
Yeah, I and I think that comes back here or there, not just fully at the end. where I think whenever she says like, no, like we're good, let's stay at the house. I think that's when
Yeah,
the
that
things
was it. Like, yeah.
but that happens not just, I noticed that happens not just that ending, right? The ending when the voice kind of gets mutilated a little bit, and like
Yeah.
she's laying in bed and she smiles, like it happens a little before that. This time, jumping ahead, that was the creepiest scene to me. Um
Ooh.
when she's
Really?
talking, yeah, and just how
Just like
different she
just in the
looks.
bed where she's like, I think we'll be okay now, or
Yeah,
that
that
kind of.
creeped me out today. I watched it right over there.
Yeah.
And but so this fucking dummy though, right after that happens, this guy, I really don't like Micah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um
Agreed.
he brings home not just a Ouija board, the most cursed looking Ouija board of all time.
Right. That thing looked like I mean, I would have been scared of it, even if nothing even happened. It's like, what is all like just like so many numbers and like I'd never.
It
Yeah.
has like a pentagram behind it. Like I
Yeah.
know obviously they definitely couldn't get like the Parker brothers to probably sign off on that, but
Hmm.
like even at time that was the most demonic looking fucking Ouija board I've ever seen. It looks like part of like a heavy metal set.
Yeah. Yeah. And like that just now that like my mind is on it, like what I get angry about with like Mika and how they set him up in this film is that like he's the one who has all the ideas of like how to deal with this, right? Like Katie's just kind of the one who's just like, we're not gonna do this. Let's stop with the cameras. Let's stop with, we're not gonna do the Ouija board. But like, there's like a point where like he has like a blog post that he's pulling up, and like it's about someone who
Oh,
like previously experienced.
I can't
Yeah.
wait to get to the blog post because
Okay.
um
In 2022, it looks real
I
like,
mean, yeah, even 2006 it was, but it's
yeah,
so like there's things like we said, I get it, the low budgetness of it, and like this movie has a charm, but there are things like the blog post, and then the our guy, the demonologist guy, or not him, coming back and like acting like a different character he did in the beginning, or
hmm,
like things that just don't fit in the fucking movie.
yeah,
But it is what it is. But this board though, like Katie's like, and I actually think the actress Katie is great in the movie.
yeah,
She's like, let's get out, like let's get out of here, like let's get out of the house for the day, let's have a nice day. And this, it's a really good scene, and I know this franchise used this even better, or at least the movies I saw, where it just leaves the camera, it just leaves the camera watching the Ouija board,
yeah,
and the Ouija board moves
like a lot. Like it's
a
like all over
lot,
the
it
place.
spells
Yeah,
something out, and then it lights on fire. And but it doesn't burn anything down. It doesn't. It's a really cool effect,
hmm,
and it's pretty creepy. And they come home and it's like, what the fuck? And they could see these like burn marks in it,
yeah. And
and
Katie's
it,
understandably pissed
yeah,
about the
she's like,
whole thing. Is it like she knows more than what she's like leading on to? Because like, she's pissed in a way that's like, I knew this was gonna happen. Like,
mhm.
you're like, wow, how
Yeah,
did you know? Right?
I guess, yeah. Or and then like he's like, do you know anyone with these like names? Like later on,
Yeah.
which leads them to finding the blog, which is weird because I don't. Anyway, I'm not gonna try to like make sense of like the lore
The
here.
plot. You're right, right. Like
Um,
the yeah.
but yeah, maybe I never watched it with like Katie knowing more than she's putting on, but it always felt like she played it as like she does have more of a secret to hide than just.
Yeah, because they find this like photo of her like when she's a
Oh,
kid in the
yeah,
attic, right? And she's
yeah,
like, "Oh, I haven't seen this photo in 15 years." And I mean, it sounds like Mika's aware that there was a fire, that
yeah.
their
That
house burned down. But
that happens like shortly after this. That happened shortly after the photo. Uh, Stuff, and I do write. I have a note here that this is where she kind of this is where I feel like her big turn is after the Ouija board. This is where like I feel like she starts acting a little different than just,
Yeah.
oh, we're setting up cameras and like, I don't know, my idiot boyfriend like wants to deal with it. But does the I'm sorry for anyone listening. Does the photos happen before he puts the powder on the floor?
I I think it's the same scene, right?
Is it the
It's the
same
same
scene?
scene. Yeah, like they come in, or like yeah, he sees the steps and he's like
Yeah,
following the steps over to where the attic is. Like
yeah,
the thing is, yeah,
she goes, yeah, I'm calling the demonologist after the Ouija board incident.
hmm
And then they find it's right before that the stuff they find the crawl space attic open. And
right.
I mean, like, I don't know who did the installation up there, but like, oof, that's bad. I don't
Yeah,
know if you've ever put insulation in that crawl space like that, but it should be a lot more cleaner. They shouldn't be all fluffed around. That's fiberglass,
yeah.
man.
Surprised they didn't have like mice like kind of crawling through. It looked like
Yeah.
it was like very
Um,
like yeah.
but he's like, I see something, and then he comes down, and there's just this photo of her standing in front of a house, and the sides are burned. She's like, that's my house. That's my old house. It burned down. I don't like this.
Yeah.
And then one thing I want to ask you though is, wouldn't at some point like wouldn't I know I would have like, you know what, I'm gonna sleep on the couch with like the TV on,
Mm,
and like I that's just maybe how I am like when I'm like scared. Like
yeah.
oddly enough, when I came home in high school and I saw this movie, I had trouble sleeping and I hung out in the living room with like the light on and the TV on. My
Right.
dad was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm like, "That movie was like really intense, Dad." He's like, okay, it's Saturday, you could sleep in, right?"
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's one thing I do wish like we had a little bit of is them not just being like, "All right, I'm gonna go in my bed."
Yeah, it's completely. I was gonna say that later. Like, it was completely not believable for me. Like, especially like the last few nights. Like, how do you even fall asleep? I would
Oh,
just be kind of like anticipating. I'm sorry, we're just gonna stay up. Like, maybe. I mean, even have the light on or something in the
I
bedroom.
think they
Like,
do. So I completely agree. I think the light is on in the bedroom
yeah,
the whole time because of the camera. Because doesn't the demonologist guy, we should learn his name. Mark, his name is Dr. Fredericks.
okay,
Uh, doesn't he like say like when he looks in the bedroom and he goes he's like, oh, you have the light on the camera rolling? He's like, yeah, every night. But you're
yeah.
right. Wouldn't you have
The first part.
something like, I know towards the last night she does say like, oh, can we put the TV on? Like,
Yeah, and it's kind of BS because last night, like the first stuff that happens is like 1:30. I'm like, he didn't go to sleep at 1:30 that night after like one of the other like most intense nights just happened. Like I wouldn't be going to sleep. I would
no, I
just be
mean
kind of
you
yeah,
just found basically a fucking baby picture. So the next thing they do though is he puts like um sorry, I forget if the TV turned on or not, so that's not important. Oh, that happened when the rocking chair. Sorry, the TV. And I wanted to
yeah.
ask
That was
you,
like one of the earlier scenes
earlier,
actually.
and I do have a
Yeah.
question though. What do you think's scarier? As someone who's freaked myself out with this stuff before, the scribbly TV, which we don't really have anymore, right? Like
Right.
a CTR
Yeah.
TV, um, going, or just if like a blank screen was on that you turned off.
Well, I mean, I actually had like that kind of TV like all the way up until I was like
Oh,
15.
I got
So
it
I
to
feel
my left.
yeah,
I
I
play
think
old
that
video
that
games on it.
whenever I mean, it was already scary. I think when that happened, like if all of a sudden there was like a bad connection to the antenna, like
Hmm.
what got a array, like it was just it would like usually make this noise too. If like a volume was up, it was like like it just like make a
Yeah,
big loud like
I
yeah
I can't move my camera that way because something blind, but I have both weirdly in my room here. I have my flat, and then like I play video games on an older CRTV because they
yeah
look better, older video games. But as someone who's kind of been creeped out by both things before, right? That the because of like things like The Ring or
Yeah.
this. But then recently, like, thinking I turned off the flat TV or the modern TV, and then it being on, I've been like, oh, that's creepy too, just in a
Yeah.
different way. It doesn't have that noise.
That happens to me now. I mean, because we have like a Roku remote or
Yeah,
whatever. And so when you try to turn that off, and then sometimes out of nowhere, like I'm like about to go to sleep, and the TV just turns on by itself. I don't know
I've
why, but that
I've
is a
had that
little
happen
bit
to me the other
unsettling.
day. Scared the hell
Yeah.
out of me. So yeah, just was wondering that. I
Yeah.
literally wrote it down
Definitely
as a
stacky
question
TV
for you.
though. Sure.
Definitely, I think
Yeah.
that wins 10 out of 10 times. But so we fast forward a little bit, and night 17 hits, and to give everyone a little reference, Rocking Chair had happened at night 8, so we're about double where we are, a little more. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, putting baby powder all over the place, because now for some reason, and this is the term we get a Micah. Maybe this is the demon too, because this movie does a really good job, I think, showing the characters kind of their fatigue of everything,
Yeah.
and like the drama that's been around them, and like their kind of hatred of each other towards the end of the fucking movie, and that's maybe where his
Yes,
play
I was gonna
comes
say it too.
from.
I think that's why I admire Katie's acting or in this movie, because like her development, like even when you see like the scenes of like with the powder on the floor, and she like clearly looks like really like terrified in these scenes, like way more so than like the things that were happening before, and like you kind of like feel the fatigue throughout the day in like the
Yeah,
normal setting too. Like she's just like tired and she's just like almost like depressed.
the
Yeah,
tiredness, like,
yeah,
I mean, fuck, I know I've been like recently, like waking up at 3 a.m. Enough, and can't fall back asleep, and then you gotta work the next day,
yeah.
and you're just your mind's different. You're a different fucking person when you don't sleep, right? Like,
Right, yeah.
and I think they do a good job showing her like that. And I think with him, it's purposely like he gets more prickish.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway,
Kinda
sets up the powder, and that night they're sleeping, and we as audience members don't see anything happening, right? Like um we don't I don't think we don't see anything. We just see like the movements around, and they wake up, and there's like hooves. It's like hoof marks in the powder. So
yeah.
now they're really freaked out. And this is when they call back. I think right after this is when they call back uh Dr. Fredericks to get the demonologist, and he comes in and he's all like, "Oh no." Um
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Neil. I did skip, however,
The
uh
blog post? You skip
the
a blog
blog.
post?
Yeah, I'm kind of skipped and all over here. This is all in the same kind of like night or day.
It's hard,
The
yeah, because
the
the nights kind of get jumbled a bit, I
the
feel like.
powder, and then like Katie feels breathing, and that's when we see the blanket flip and
Yeah.
slight movement. She's not always up.
Chandelier movement sometimes. I feel like
Yeah,
that's like
that's
one in
early
there.
because they hear the
Yeah.
bang, and like that's when they run up. But you're right. This is when we this blog post though is it makes it like it fits the movie. I get what they were going for. It's the most out of place thing in this whole movie
Yeah.
because
You weren't already researching this way before? Like we
yeah,
like are kind of when you're not a curious person about like
geez, you bought all the
yeah.
tech equipment in the world, but you couldn't do a Google. It was like, I found this thing. It sounds like your symptoms, exactly what that is. And then there's
And
like
she's
a
like, "Yeah, yeah, you're right." Like, I didn't believe that either in the sense that she's been denying him this whole film, but then like I did research, like
yeah.
research is such a that's such a I think in 2022 it's hard to hear like I did my own research because that means like a lot.
Oh,
Um
I do have a note in here that he did. He the last night or night before, he does show big like he definitely was anti-mask when he was like, we're staying in my house, it's my house, we're
Yes.
fighting back. Like, and that's
Yeah.
kind of word for word the speech he gives. And it's like, what? This is not the guy I met in the beginning of the movie.
No, it's not. That's why I was thinking the same thing. Like, I don't know. He just turns into like this classic,
Fighting back.
Very masculine sort of like, macho guy. I'm gonna fix the situation. Yeah.
I get it. I get like, and I for a minute I do think he's doing everything
Like
try to fix the situation that like
he thinks is reasonable, maybe.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Cool. Like, I don't know, maybe, I mean, like, I do this show, I like horror things, but I'd be terrified if I had to be like, well, I want to set up a camera. Like, I don't want to sleep. I want to also sleep and be like, okay, like, I'm gonna go sleep on the couch. I would have slept on the couch the whole fucking night.
I would have like at least tried to leave one night before then,
or
like just try some other different,
Well, because they really take the doctor's
a long time
word for it. Like, he's like, nope, you can't leave. It's with you. Guy didn't like diagnose her. He just gave an assumption.
Yeah, I mean, for Mika being like so anti-therapist, advice, he doesn't really like suggest, why don't we just leave earlier?
One night,
day 11.
And the worst night, they're like, we're gonna get out of here, and then he listens, which is even weirder. Like, no, bitch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wouldn't say that, but yeah, no, bitch. Like, we're getting out of here.
Yeah.
I mean that in the most loving, nicest way. But yeah. So they're eating, and then like, they hear the bang, boom, and the thing's cracked. And no, I noted it down. So we're actually in the right spot. We didn't hit HTML and they see the photo, and it's just him, and it's like just creepy. And then this is when the doctor shows up, like right after that. And I said it a million times, right? I think it's the funniest part of the movie because he shows up and it's like he's like, oh, I gotta go, can't be here. Demon, he's out of town. He'll be back in a few days. He'll be right over. And it's almost something that like, it reminded me of like a neighbor coming over in a sitcom.
Yeah.
Like Ned Flanders walking in to like get like a cup of sugar and then leaving.
Yeah. They get like maybe like 60 seconds in there and then they're just gone. Yeah.
Like, okay.
It could have been, I think that could have been utilized a little bit better just to kind of get like a whole, like a lore thing more founded right in the movie. Like if they had like an actual demonologist come in and I don't know.
They were trying to set up lore and like there definitely wasn't, which is cool about it. We talked earlier, they're not planning this world. This isn't a movie that at the time of its inception was trying to, take over Saw's Halloween box office, right? There was a passing of a torch, feel like, from franchise to franchise. Mm-hmm. But either way, that scene's in the movie, and then we're on night 18. So night 17 feels long, and that's kind of where we got confused from. Night 18 is the blanket moves, and then they wake up, and then this is finally when he does his research on night 19 of or day 19.
And there's like it's 21 days in total, right? Like so we're pretty late here.
And he looks at the thing, and it's just like scrolling web page that like looks like a MySpace, like it looks like a really stripped down MySpace like HTML page.
Almost worse. I mean, I was thinking like it looked like it was like MySpace, like like you could anyone could like create a website and like just kind of like put that on there, right? So not that they were going for like, I read this like really legit article from a news source, but like there's a happy medium a little bit.
I mean, like we were on the internet in 2006 and earlier. Web pages looked good. Blogs looked better than that. Hell. Right. But I think it was like the black background with like the white text and like red. It's just very like
yeah.
But what made me chuckle too was like they have the photos of what happened to the girl, and it's just very like classic like exorcist face. And
Yeah,
there's
it looked
video,
like a copy of like someone of like the girl from The Exorcist, right? Like
yeah, just in black and white and like really muddled, so you didn't like focus on it too much. And we see this video that's like oddly edited into it because he's filming the screen with the camera. So
yeah,
it's to get us in the mood, but it's one of the few things that doesn't like it's not needed in this movie, I felt.
it's not at all, and it doesn't actually hold like any other. Like, there's no significance of like this person looking like the person who was like possessed or like had the demon haunting them,
And I
like looking
guess
like that because Katie doesn't look like that at the end of the movie, right? She's like
no.
pretty much fine.
And I guess
Um,
and that's what they allude to, like maybe it was coincidental and we're supposed to think of like the Ouija board was saying who the woman's name Dina.
oh,
Um
okay, yeah,
and that's what he thought, but like to me that seems like such a jump to conclusions. I think it was just coincidence. And I guess the movie or the franchise, the creators realized this doesn't work because it's been a long time, but to my memory, that's one thing that never comes back to
no,
the series, right? Even Ghost Dimension, which I think is in Mexico, right?
yeah, I
uh
believe so. Yeah,
doesn't
been a
go
while.
there. It doesn't bring any of that. Like we don't lead, in a, oh well, remember the one video they watched in the first movie, well here's the story of that. Like that hasn't happened yet.
No, I mean it really like focuses on this family for I mean or at least like Katie's family for the most
hey
part. So
hey
yeah.
Paramount, if you're listening though, I got a great idea. That video we see in the first movie, let's make that movie. Give me a writing credit.
We'll take
um
you up. We'll take you up.
but so you know I don't know what happened here because I just have a note that I'm like Mika just gaslights her the whole movie. I swear
Yeah.
he
Yeah, it's so annoying. Yeah, I really am actually like what interests me about movies, especially like ones that are like classic, is just you get such a good like capture of like, I think what society like how society operates at the time or like what is perceived to like operate like at the time with like a typical like couple dynamic. And
yeah.
so I'm just like I'm a little troubled by the dynamic because again they like kind of make Katie look like she's
Well,
just like yeah
but
not
maybe like
with it.
maybe there's a lane of like it's very purposeful and that's just like the stress and the entity playing on both emotions, but no, I think that's just him at
Yeah,
the
I
end
mean,
of the
he's
day.
also just a dick. Yeah.
And yeah, because I think it was just more, oh, I have that note at this moment. Because I think he's still doing the thing where she's like, I'm scared. Or like, let's get out of here. And he's like, relax. I'm going to like,
I'm gonna take
you're
care of this.
taking care of this.
Yeah.
You're overreacting. Like, and like,
Yeah.
we all have significant others. And like, those are conversations like you have with your wife, but not about like, I'm scared for my life because of demons happening. It's more
Nah.
just like, oh, like, this is a common occurrence. It'll be all right. Like, well,
Yeah, and you usually like just give more weight to like the person who's more concerned about things. I mean, I think COVID's a great example, right? If like
yeah,
people in like 2020, like if you were in a relationship, then like you had someone probably who took it way more seriously in like a couple dynamic, and so I think for most relationships, at least that I knew of, like how like a couple would react or how like safe they would play it in terms of like where they would wear masks and like who they would interact with, like
oh,
you usually go with the person who's like wants to be more safe, right? Like you
abs-
like yeah
absolutely. So this is that's a really good observation. Yeah, you go with the person who wants to be more safe. Like I know COVID's a
yeah
good example. Yeah, we were still are for everything, like consistent communication, and you weigh the things, and like I was the one going, oh, that it might not be too bad, and my wife was like the one being like, maybe we sit this one out, right? And it's like, okay,
yeah
you're right.
yeah, like you don't like fight them on that, like, oh, I want to be more safe, like let's just do that, like no, like there's that this tends
No.
to end worse than anyone than what it's worth in the battle, so yeah.
So right after that though, really this 2 days of now we do our research. The night 20 is the first night, the second to last night, and she gets dragged out of bed, and we see the blanket go up, and then we see her flag just roll right out of bed. Once again, a great effect, and the thud that her body makes in the ground is so well done, really is. And we just see her get pulled out and like go through like the powder because that's still been there every night. And you don't.
The scream is powerful. In this
her scream, and you don't hear it. You don't see anything. You don't hear anything. And Mika runs out.
Yeah.
And then, but then we get back to bed, and they're freaked. The night ends. And this, once again, it's stupid to say this is the time. We're like, okay, we're gonna go. We're going to a hotel tonight. I don't care. Tonight, I'd be out of. That was not my note, right? Wouldn't you be out of there the morning of? I'd be like, hey,
yeah, she's got like a big bite on her leg, right?
Goes, you have a bite,
yeah, which looks like way worse than like a spider bite. Then it looks like a really,
it's a demon bite.
Yeah, that's another way to describe it.
There's a demon bite. She has a bite, and then he finds her. He finds her shortly after that, just holding a cross so clenched tight that it's cutting her hand, and she's bleeding, and she's hypnotic in a trance, and he's like, well, let's put you to bed.
Well, no, actually, I think that like this was the most real. I mean, for Mika, like this is the part where like, okay, finally you're not annoying. He's just kind of like, I'm tired of this shit, like kind of just says it like that. And then like I think that's like when he's assistant that he does put her to bed. You're right.
No, because he's like, we're gonna get a hotel. We're gonna go this evening. So maybe they're leaving in a couple hours or two. But like, I just meant for myself. I'd be like, great, we'll get a hotel tonight, but we're out of here now.
Right.
Get a pair of shorts and a couple clothes to get,
why not leave in the middle of the night in one of these nights too? Like, why
run out of the house? I would have ran out of that fucking house in the street. I would have knocked on
a neighbor's door. Something like.
So they're just idiots, but he puts her to bed, just console her after like he sees her bleeding and clear concern. You're right. He's back to being like a normal human and not just like yelling at her.
Yeah.
And this is where earlier I thought was the creepiest moment, and the voiceover a little bit, and she's just like, no, I think we'll be okay now. And there's this dubbed over voice, and he's like, which is once again a weird part. I'm just going, okay.
Yeah, I don't know why he goes along. I mean, I think that in that situation, right, he probably won't leave, but there's got to be a little bit more of as much as he like argues in this movie with her, like that's like a surprising scene.
Well, anyone who's in a relationship knows, right? Or not even romantic. Like there are times you just need there are times to have an argument.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. That is one of those times where, I know my wife wouldn't, or I wouldn't. I'm not taking no for an answer. We're getting out of here.
Someone's like so uncomfortable.
I'd be like, what's wrong? You're happy now. What? This doesn't make sense. I would turn it into an hour conversation where she would then go, fine, let's go.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess I don't know. I think they like purposely don't try to make that attempt, right? These are very careful choices of like, we're not gonna
this is the end
be too realistic.
No, this isn't realistic. This is our last day. And then we get right after that though, we get to the night, they're sleeping, and she stands up, but now she walks around and stares right at Micah
for hours.
This is when the ticker really like shows.
She actually like changes standing positions too, doesn't she? She like kind of stands in one place for a bit.
Yeah, she stands
goes
in the
over
corner
there.
She had been standing at like previously, and then she walks over to Micah, I think, and stares at him.
Yeah,
and the sheets before that though
comes off of him.
You're right. Yeah, she's staring at the corner, and what it looks like telekinetically takes the sheets off of him, goes over, he wakes up, right, and whew, slams through that doorway, and I just feel like it's so like iconic, that framing and scene, and she follows, and like she is like a Terminator build at that point.
Yeah.
Um,
That is really like, I mean, I think that's also like just like scary movies are hard with like the climaxes sometimes, because like you're really like waiting for it. I mean, a lot of scary movies like the whole time, and then you don't want to feel disappointed. Like I think that this movie does like its job and like really making the climax. To me,
yeah.
it was the scariest part.
No, the final 10 minutes. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember my theater experience from it, and watching it wraps everything other, and like your emotions are running high, like the anxiety, and the payoff is there.
Yeah. I mean, it really sunk in because I mean, the first time I watched this actually was weird. Like I was on an airplane. It was just like, they have like, they even then like just like, movies you can watch on there. And
Wait,
like,
you saw this on an airplane for the first
saw this
time?
on the airplane, and like after it was done, like I saw that scene, I literally like shot back in my seat. Like did not expect like the body to just fly into the
Yeah.
screen. But then like turbulence, like the flight attendant or whatever, the pilot came on, it's like there was gonna be like 20 minutes of turbulence. And so I had to like sit there after watching that movie and just like shake in this plane, and I just thought I was gonna die. Like it was just like the worst.
What an experience. No.
So I think that's why actually it sunk in even more, because of just that. I was like, my heart was pounding. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, she, you hear thud thud, and she throws the body, and Mika's like dead body at the camera, and the camera's a thing. And I love she walks over to the body like very like feral, like an animal, like kind of almost like sniffs it a little bit. And then we get like the Steven Spielberg ending.
Yeah.
Literally it suggested she walks to the camera, smiles, and it turns into
that is terrifying.
And it's a well off jump scare, because you're like, huh. And then it's, a title card comes up, like the beginning of the movie, the title card comes up, and it, Mika's body was found 3 days later, I think.
Yeah.
And Katie is still missing out there.
Yeah.
And then
I like that they keep like it's still, right? Like the noise is still kind of vibrating when you're reading that too.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's like done yet, like it's
that background. Yeah, and that's Paranormal Activity. Like it's all atmosphere, right? Little happens, but a lot happens. And we talked early on. So this movie, I've always heard this movie was sent out to theaters with the three different endings. And like there was a main one most people got, but some people got like some alternate ones. And I think that's just a rumor. And I'm gonna read you the endings. And I suggest look them up.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna watch them. But,
so the one we saw is what's considered this Hollywood ending. The original ending is I have the things here. Is the cop ending. In the original, Katie returns to the bedroom, bloody in a trance, holding a knife, and she's like rocking back and forth next to the bed. Time passes until a neighbor drops by to check on him, only to find Mika's dead body. She screams, calls the cops. They come and encounter Mika's corpse. By the way, all this is just through that last angle. Like you just hear this commotion. They climb the stairs and find Katie in the bedroom. She snaps out of the trance as soon as the cops shine a flashlight on her. She comes toward them, but she says like Mika. And then when a door slams, the door slams again. But this is all, like I said, very in frame. It's clear the first time a Star Wars cop shoots her dead, and that's it. It's not scary. It's just more of like tragic. Like it actually seems more like a student film ending. I feel like a lot of these student films have more of like, I don't know, the cop showed up and killed them.
Yeah, I mean that is a different turn than I thought I was going to go. I thought that like the cop was going to die or something.
No, watch that one because she is very like Mika again. I mean, she's Katie again because she's
Yeah,
asking for
like it's
Mika,
like a sweet
and
sort
the
of
cops are just startled. It's weird. It's very dark. Like I think the only versions out there are very dark. Like that ending wasn't on the DVD I have, but this one, the next one was in this version, which the actors say really disturbed audiences. Which actually I like this ending better. Katie goes back to the bedroom after all the everything is the same up until they re-enter the door frame. So all that commotion and her killing Mika, like that happens off screen, but she just walks in with her grin on and blood, and she stares at the camera, smiles, and slits her throat, and like the audio kind of alludes like the demon is out of her body now, and she falls. It's a lot more blunt and disturbing.
Yeah, I think that would actually be scarier.
That was
just
creepy.
because
It's
yeah,
creepy.
like you don't want to watch. I mean that feels like too.
Because it feels real. That's why.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I just know. Yeah,
she
that's
does this. And it's that
with like the smile on her face. No, like
with a smirk.
Oh gosh, no. I mean, I guess I did not. Yeah, I did not hear of these. I mean, I guess I heard that there were multiple endings, but I just thought that it was like universally everyone kind of just saw one still. Yeah,
that's the rumor. I just remember at the time, like, so I don't know. I don't know what happened there, but I know I saw the ending that we talked about tonight. And then this third one from this article, and I got this from a 2009 article, which was never filmed, which would have sucked, by the way. This would have been like way too more Hollywood ending. A possessed Katie corners, it wasn't filmed, it was too complicated. A possessed Katie corners Mika and bludgeons him with his precious camera while viewers watch from the camera's point of view. So this this ending was more complicated, but just like in the script, so they never shot it, and I'm like,
I can only see it being like really, unsettling if she just like repeatedly just keeps, hitting him on this. Yeah,
and you're just like more here, like crunches and bashes.
Yeah,
that's Paranormal Activity. So on this show we don't review them. It's not a review. It's just a conversation. But what did you think? I guess would anything else to add? And did you think anything different of this movie from this watch?
Yeah, I kind of get the sense of like I don't know. Yeah, I'm curious to I guess hear as someone who's probably watched a lot more scary movies than me, like just how culturally impactful you think it was in terms of like changing the genre, because like I think like those movies like get the most hype, like even if you have like a movie that's like a pretty like great scary movie, like I know y'all already did like Scream, but I feel like Scream didn't really change the horror genre.
Scream changed the horror genre. I mean, this movie is so Scream and Blair Witch are what I would call
you think the foundational sort of
of certain generations, right? So like Gen X has Scream. And
it's like a millennial one, maybe.
And Blair Witch, right? Like I think that is shocked audiences, and I think millennials, to do two comparisons, we have honestly the same kind of time jump. We have something like The Ring, where we were really enthralled with like these J horror remakes of the time, and like a lot of people, I don't know, I'm 30, I assume you're around the similar age, give or take a couple years.
Yeah, right. 27. Yeah.
Yeah, so, give or take a couple. It's same ballpark. Those are the ones we saw, and I hear a lot of people reference of like, oh, that scared me, or changed, way. And then something like The Ring, which is a Japanese remake, horror remake, had a bunch of different imitators, right? Of nothing was ever as good as The Ring. Paranormal Activity comes around in 2009. I'm a junior in high school, and I mean, it was senior. That was senior. Oh, that was senior year because it was in October.
Yeah.
I graduated.
I was a freshman. So,
okay, perfect. Yeah, I remember seeing that senior year, and that I think just gave us another of our generation another lane, another genre to be introduced to, because we really only had the Blair Witch then, but by that time people our age renting it weren't really scared by it. It was just kind of like, and I reviewed it for this show and I did think it was really scary and I think it's a really good movie, but I know why people were like, what is this camera shaking for an hour and a half?
Right.
And I think Paranormal reset that, and then Hollywood took and ran with it for
I think the camera work is actually like what's also novel about this, right? Like everything's just like a home video.
Yeah, just dead still, like
and like I think that like makes it way less, like there's way less pressure to focus on the acting, even though I don't think the acting's bad.
No, it's not. And they do so there's a lot of imitators. Like I said, I didn't think this was like this watch after not seeing it in about 10 years. I was like, okay, I'm just desensitized by it. Like I could joke about it more than but I don't think I could dismiss its like importance or where it was. And I do think a lot of I don't watch many of them ever, but like those ghost hunter shows, I think Paranormal Activity shaped those kind of shows too, how they were being presented at post 2009. And I would say for a good 5-6 years,
like it had its hits.
Footage was there was the ups and your downs and good ones, so it has its place. It's creepy. I think it's one thing that I think it's something that kids probably going to discover it around that age and be like, oh, this is creepy, right? Because they aren't getting found footage movies every week now, so they are a little more like scarce and scary. I think it's when it was every week it was a new found footage movie. It became not scary at all.
I think that there's like just been this progression with scary movies, and that like the ideas or like like the of like what sets up the movie, like it's always like been progressing. And I think now like what we're getting into, which I am very excited about, like the few movies I guess like the horror movies I've seen more recently, like I really loved like You and Get Out, just for its like the horror in the movies is more so in like our society. I think it's just like a much more big like picture, like how can we really like get inside somebody's like
the new Scream term, elevated horror, right? It's more I feel like
it's like a creep
films are coming
or
out,
cringe, like a cringe scary, like I don't know, like you get like cringed out by like people's opinions almost, right? Or I don't even know, like they're like the worst of somebody.
Social horror. Yeah,
exactly. It's like social horror. There's actually, I think, a good term for it.
Well, a cool thing about horror, and I remember seeing this a while ago, and we'll wrap up soon, is it follows the fears for the most part. What you're going to see follows, and this has been the truth since the 50s and earlier. It follows the fears of what's going on in the news. So like in the 50s, you got a lot of like monster movies, right? Like the Attack of the 50-Foot Woman or something. And, there's a direct line there to the fear of the unknown of the Red Scare and like the communism. And I'm picking this up from like a documentary I saw a while ago. And then like in the 2000s, I don't have an answer for every decade, but like in the early 2000s, you have torture porn become popular, like Saw and Hostel. And it's very parallel to what we're getting videos from Iraq and beheadings and things like that.
Yeah, I mean that's
And
actually a great point. I never think about how. Yeah, I mean it really is a reflection of.
and
Yeah.
and I do think Paranormal Activity I'm just speaking to my ass right now for listening. I think Paranormal Activity comes at a good time where like it's right around and before like the let's set up cameras and put everything on the internet, and
Yeah.
like that's getting off the ground in 2006 2009. YouTube's new, so I do think it was a little more adapt for our eye, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
you're all good.
this is the part that I was talking about. My dogs are. Yeah.
That's all
Sorry.
good. No, you're
One.
good. But
All right.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of
No, but I think that is a that point right there, like that is like key. Like especially, I didn't think about this is like a really weird time, like in terms of like the internet is. I'm surprised that it really hasn't taken off. Okay.
no worries.
All right. No, I mean, I really think that this is like a time where like the internet really like I don't know why people aren't as like into it as much as like they should be, because I mean people are using the internet in like 2001, right? But
Yeah.
like it's
Well,
not as like
today,
foundational of a source as like 2011. I think is like really when like the first iPhone comes out, or
uh-huh.
maybe that it's like a couple of years earlier. And so it is. I mean, it is like a weird sort of in between time where people have like flip phones. People don't really have like their phones be like their whole computer system anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it,
don't.
it, I think the popularity of it just waned over the years, just because of fatigue. There was a lot of found footage. There was a lot of sequels. They got really silly.
Yeah, I mean, so what do you anticipate? Like, I guess there wasn't really like a horror made like about like a recession, right? Like that happened in
Yeah,
2008
I
too,
don't I
and
don't know
I
if
guess they
that
didn't really cut into it.
capitalized on anything, right? I mean, I think we still got to see.
Like we'll
Um,
probably get a pandemic. I mean, I guess we did have a pandemic one. What was it Contagion, right? That was like
oh
a more of a
yeah,
horror. But like,
yeah.
I mean, we probably will get like something a little bit more socially like engaging. I think of like a horror movie
Oh, I'm
maybe later.
sure. I'm sure there's a billion of those in the works. But anyway,
Sorry, I didn't mean to like kind of like just get into like, oh, what's
no,
next? But yeah,
no.
yeah,
They're great questions, and it's weird because, like I said, like I can't pinpoint like you know what the movies were that I could. I guess I can, but like I think with the whole like the horror mimics what's going on in the news and society more. I like the abstract answers of it and not so much of like, oh, that's clearly like an allegory for like They Live is a John Carpenter's They Live is a straight up allegory for like capitalistic like Reaganism.
yeah,
And but like I don't think that is more what the like Saw and Hostel comparison to like Iraq and the Middle East, like us as children seeing beheadings on the news for the most part, right? We didn't, but like
right.
adjacent. So I think stuff like that's like yet to be seen. I don't know if there's an exact answer for each one of those. But anyway, is there anything else you'd like to add to Paranormal Activity, or like I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a short movie, right? So it's not like it's like a something that you can. I mean, I don't know that I just have an appreciation for it. I think that like I'm very nostalgic for it, which is why I like it so much, or it still like kind of has its imprint on me. And
Sure.
even the follow up movies are just like so fun, like I always like got it was like it's a great movie to watch like really late, because like the scariest parts are always like really late, right? And so you can
Yeah,
easily
I
just
mean,
kind of
I'm
like
not.
put yourself in that environment, which
It's
yeah.
late here. I am not watching two or three. But you're right.
Yeah,
It's they're I mean, they're good first date movies too.
yeah. I love the social dynamic of scary movies. It's
Oh,
just
sure,
always like
sure.
so fun. Like I will always have an appreciation, and yeah,
Social Watching horror movies with people are much better than alone for
right.
a bunch of different features. But anyway, Neil, where can the people find you?
Yeah. So Unprecedented Podcast, we have it pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. Mainly we like on our Instagram. You can find us on there. It's still like the same name, Unprecedented. It's with S in the middle of it, not a C. So it's like UnPresI.
Yeah, the link will be below.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's we have a Twitter account as well. Sometimes I post about it on my, personal Instagram, but that's just Niel Skalican or Niel_Skalican.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's kind of like the main, passion project that I have going right now in terms of just like, we're into the end of season 2. And just really excited. I mean, we still have, 25 presidents to do, and we've already been recording for about a year now. So
yeah,
we have a side. Yeah. Oh, sorry. No, we have like side episodes every 5 episodes as well.
Yeah, it's a really excellent show, and I feel like with presidents and everything, even when you hit the rest of the presidents, you could always circle back and find new things about, or different sides and new things about presidents you've covered. So
yeah,
keep it up.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think that we try to, again, like what I try to do at the end of this recording here is just like we try to capture what does it mean in 2022 and beyond, of how like the opinion is going to change of presidents. And it's always like, it's never still like, oh, this president's story is over, right? Because society is always going to reevaluate how someone's reflected upon, which I think is like the most interesting part of it. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on. You could, as always, you could find me here at Flyover State of Fear and Film, and online at Shendango1, our other Twitter, Flyover State of Fear. Once again, thanks, Neil. Stay frightful, everyone. Welcome to Flyover State of Fear.